There was a time when skaters rejected the mainstream so much that even Nike couldn't hack into the skate shoe market. But these days, all the skater-owned brands I grew up on, like Circa, DVS, Fallen, Supra, Osiris, and even Lakai to an extent, they're all gone or a former shell of what they once were. And all the bigger household names like Adidas, Nike, New Balance, Asics even are crushing it in their absence. But right now, there's another big swing to put skateboarding back in the hands of skaters, and there are just a few small brands trying to fight for shelf space with the big guys, including this brand that you've probably never heard of, Ours Is Yours. So trying to fight for shelf space in the skate market shoe game right now is kind of like a knight trying to fight a dragon to get the pile of gold. Like the knight is little skater-owned brands, the dragon is big brands like Nike, Adidas, New Balance, etc. The pile of gold is the skate shoe market. So there's going to be lots of knights trying to get that gold, and 99% of those guys are going to get burned up and killed by the dragon because it's a dragon versus a tiny little knight. But if the knight is super clever and quick on his feet and honestly has tons of luck, they can end up getting some of that gold for themselves. So can Ours Is Yours brand that you've probably never heard of even survive in the shoe game? Are they worth the money? How do they skate? And like, how does a small brand like this even survive against these monolith shoe brands? So quick history of this company to give you some context of who they are. So Ours Is Yours was co-founded by legendary Baker pro skater Brian Herman and Dennis Martin. Brian Herman, for you kids that don't know, is an OG from the 2000s. He rides for Baker. He's just generally like a really cool dude, and he has tons of like really good style in his tricks. One of the best hard flips of all time. He actually rode for America for a long time and had some like really popular pro model shoes that are still being made today under slightly different names. He also has led like a very entrepreneurial life outside of skating. Like he's started and been co-owners of a bunch of brands, kind of like Happy Hour Shades, Socadelic Socks, and I think he owned a pharmacy skate shop. I don't know if that's still in business, to be honest, but he's owned a bunch of little entrepreneurial things. He's got some business smarts behind his awesome skating. The other half of the company is Dennis Martin. He's had a long career in the skate world. I was creeping on him on LinkedIn, and he has like titles like marketing director at Supra and Crew, which is like, if you remember Crew jeans, it's like two skate companies that were pretty big in like the mid to late 2000s. They don't have a ton of history since they're so new, so I actually reached out to them to ask like what they have going on. And they told me in 2015, that's when they came up for like the Ours idea. They said, for us, we wanted to create a skater-owned and operated footwear brand to offer a point of difference to the corporate-owned brands in the skateboarding industry. The idea is to try and keep some of the industry's income flowing back into the industry. So this in turn would benefit skate shops, skate distribution, and skaters themselves to have the experience of being part of something that has their back. The design aesthetic was skate shoes and like semi-casual shoes with minimal branding using the best materials we can offer. It's kind of like the local multiplier effect. It's like every dollar spent at the local store contributed 3 times the jobs, income, effects, and tax benefits to the local economy, with the local economy being, you know, like skating in this sense. They said, after a few trials and making samples, we found it really difficult to find the right production partner to make what we wanted. So in 2020, they reached out to one more developer and presented their brand idea. They had a few more samples made, and the first pullovers were right on track. So they said this gave us the go-ahead to move forward with our idea. So therefore, in 2021, they launched with their Cohiba penny loafer skate shoe, and they kind of like jump-started this like penny loafer skate shoe trend that like Last Resort is on right now, and a whole bunch of other brands like Vans kind of jumped on. But just to put in perspective how small of a brand they still are, their shoes are available in 75 shops worldwide, while Nike is available in 500 stores in just the US. So they're like a blip on the radar compared to the big guys. But honestly, in 2021, when Ours Is Yours released to the public, its reaction seemed pretty small. Like they seemed to be marketed as like a lifestyle shoe brand that was selling loafers and not really a skate specific brand. Like I thought it was like, oh, Brian Herman's making like a lifestyle shoe. I wasn't 100% sure like what they were. It was just kind of a confusing release to like the general audience. Like only my really core homies like even knew what that was. It's like, oh, it's Brian Herman's brand, like sick, but that's like 1 out of, 15 people that I talked to. So this brings us to the first problem of a small brand versus a big brand. A small brand is poor. Honestly, they're probably funding it out of pocket, and it just takes a lot of money to do this. And big brands can just be like, oh, we want to release this new shoe. Let's go make this huge marketing and advertising campaign to get into the shops. While Ours Is Yours kind of has to go like guerrilla, and like every single dollar counts for their marketing. So that's the first problem that these little brands are going to have, is they just can't compete with the marketing dollars and get that big splash into the market that you really need, especially when you're so small and competing against people that everyone knows.
Do you ever spend too much time hunting for coupon codes only to have them all expire when you try to check out? Me too. I usually just give up on it because it's impossible to find when I search like a little coupon and then it gives me a code and it takes me to some other website and it never works. And that's when I heard about Cooper, the free browser extension that automatically finds and applies the best coupon codes at checkout so you never overpay again. And the way it works is pretty simple. It's super easy to use. Step 1, install the free Cooper extension in seconds. It works with Chrome, Edge, Firefox, and Safari. Step 2, shop like normal. Step 3, at checkout, Cooper automatically tests every available coupon and applies the best one, just like this. And with the Cooper Cash Back program, you earn money just from shopping. Over 76 retailers, including Walmart, Sephora, and Temu, give you cash back, which you can redeem through PayPal, gift cards, or bank cards. And Cooper already has over 6 million weekly users, saving big, so why pay full prices in 2025 when you can just click the link in the description, install Cooper for free, and start saving now?
So moving on to the shoe, the brand is Ours Is Yours. The style is the Code V2 black leather. This is the Brian Herman Pro model shoe. It weighs 14.1 ounces. It retails for $75. The suede versions of this shoe go for like $60 to $70. That's about as cheap as a shoe as you can get these days. So they're a very consumer-friendly price point. They're made in China, and the positioning of these on the website says the Code V2 with the goddess insoles and updated tongue straps for extra support and impact protection. The Volk that skates like a cup sole. So known for creating some of the most iconic skate silhouettes in history, Herm returns with a complete redesign of the infamous G-Code, quietly known as the Code. Built for skateboarding, the Code brings style and comfort with one-of-a-kind design elements previously never seen on a skate shoe. Luxe suede and leather tops off our signature Volk outsole with rope laces and flat laces, making this a premium skate shoe. We actually got these shoes. Tactics Board Shop sent us to us. They're like an online distributor. I like Tactics because they usually have the brands that, like, if the local shops don't carry them, you can go to Tactics and they'll probably have them in stock. They sent us these tiny ones because I couldn't get them in Utah. So shout out to Tactics for hooking it up and wanting to help promote a small company like Ours Is Yours. So go check them out. You can buy this shoe with the link in bio, or like go see what else they have with the link in bio. So going to the first thing, the upper shape. This is called a hole cut style upper in the boot world. It's just one big piece of leather wrapped around your foot. One thing that is good about the shoe design is it takes away all the stitch areas around the ollie and flick areas. In the Janoskis I was just skating, I put a hole right where they're stitched. Asics I skated like a month ago, I immediately put holes where they're stitching. So pretty much every single shoe gets a hole where they're stitching because the stitching just kicks through immediately. So I really like this design just to remove all the stitching out of there. Like there's not going to be any stitching fail points because there's no stitching. And one cool benefit that I kind of learned as I was skating this is it breaks in really well to the shape of your foot. Because it is just like one big leather sock, there's no like hard break points. The more you wear it, the more it just like molds to the shape of your foot. So it's kind of like an unexpected benefit from the hole cut shape, which is sick. And the last thing is it's a pretty anatomical shape for your foot, especially coming off of skating like Janoskis. I really don't like them that much. These are a little wider. They're just more comfortable on your foot. And I really like that the branding is super minimal. Like they just have a couple words right there. I feel like that's something all the skater-owned brands right now are doing is no branding. Like Last Resort, no branding. These, no branding. Like Warsaw, Jimmy Thomas's brand, no branding, which I really like because I don't know, sometimes I hate looking at like the end on a New Balance or the Nike swoosh and I feel kind of like a goober. That's kind of like my core skate take. This is actually the first non-suede skate shoe I think I've done since we started doing these skate reviews. I'll run through a quick suede versus leather pros versus cons. So leather is the outside skin of the animal. It's like the skin right here. It's exposed to the elements. It's usually way more durable than suede since it still has some grain structure holding it all together. Usually less board feel and it takes longer to break in because it's not quite as soft and supple as suede. It's usually pretty slippery at first, which is true of pretty much any leather skate shoe I've ever worn. It's always slick until you rough it up a bit and kind of get all the finishes, you know, rough. Even in cobbling, it's like a common technique to rough up the leather before you glue stuff, like when you're making boots. So they're just kind of gonna be slick right off the bat. What suede is, it's the underside of the leather. It's super fuzzy. It has a lot better grip right off the bat because the fuzzy hairs kind of act like Velcro. Way more flexible and way lighter right away. Way less time to break in than actual like leather. And they're usually way cheaper than grain leather. It kind of depends case by case, but at this quantity and quality, yes, it's much cheaper. So it's not super durable. It's usually so thin it has to be backed by fabric. Since suede is just loose fibers, you can just pull it apart at thinner thicknesses. So this leather is kind of baffling to us. Like even Taylor, our cobbler, Father Leather, Weston himself, like we're all kind of baffled. Like, is this real leather or not? Like we really couldn't tell. The thickness is 1.5 millimeters thick, which is pretty average for a shoe this cheap. And if you look at the macro of the finish, it has a really heavy finish on top. Like you can see the fake pour pattern embossed into it, which is typical for a shoe like under $150. On really nice leather, you can kind of see the pores and imperfections. We'll put up like macros behind me so you can kind of see the difference between nice leather and cheap leather. So a telltale sign of good leather versus bad leather or even fake leather is the burn test. So we put the lighter to it and it bubbles up and melts away like crazy, which would lead us to the impression that it is fake leather, but fake leather would burn completely away. It would start lighting on fire and just be gone. And there was something left here after we scratched it away. So we went to the macro of the grain and the grain shot can usually guarantee us an answer. And you can see the super heavy top coat on the leather itself and just like a smidge of like suede and like blue fibers in there. So I was talking to Taylor, our cobbler, about it and I was like, he thinks it's a pretty like low quality split leather that's have like a pretty heavy dye on top of it and like finishes. And then it's also backed at the bottom, which is why it lights on fire so much. So it's just kind of weird. It's not really like premium leather. It might be some of the worst leather we've actually ever seen, which brings us to another big problem that these small companies have is that they don't have the money. Like for a price point shoe that's only $70 or so, bigger companies can put more technology in it because they can make up the difference in volume of sales. Like everything they do to this shoe is going to make it more expensive. New Balance, they had a $110 shoe that was built like a $150 shoe if it was a smaller company. So that's one of the problems that these small companies have is they really can't get the nicest stuff unless it's going to be like $200 and no one's going to pay $200 for that. But as for like the skate performance itself, it felt really slippery right away. I mean, it's kind of true of all like leathers that I've ever skated, but once it got roughed up, it felt good. But it went through so fast. Like I started to put a big hole in it after like 3 to 4 hours. And then I went totally through it after about 4 skate sessions, probably like 8 to 10 hours of skating. It's just kind of low quality, but you can shoe glue it back together. For a shoe this cheap, I mean, and you're skating in it, it's gonna go through. It just didn't last as long as I would have liked it. I think it would be really sick to do like a rough out skate shoe. It's like the nice version of Suede. It's just like grain leather flipped outside, and it's not split, it's not anything. It would be super durable. I think that'd be sick to do it, but it would make the shoe, you know, way more expensive. There's also one more surprise in here that we found out when we cut it in half, so I'll show you that once we get it cut in half. But moving to the inside and lining, it's just like a basic textile lining, like the tongue straps that keep the tongue down are pretty nice. They keep your foot locked in there. Overall, it's a really comfortable upper. It's just not super durable. But then if you move to the insole insert, it's kind of the maker or breaker of vulcanized shoes because they don't have any midsoles. So these are called the Goddess insoles. It's a closed cell foam insole. It feels pretty dense when you take it out. We ran the ball drop test on it, and it bounced up 15.5 inches, which is the third highest skate shoe that we've done. So I like this insole a lot. In other shoes with open cell foam insoles like the Vans Half Cab, they just feel too squishy. It's like you're jumping in sand. These are super responsive, and they don't feel like you're losing a bunch of energy when you jump. It's like when you jump, it doesn't all compress. It's like it actually helps you jump and, like, I don't know, rebound the energy. So big fan. I really like these Goddess insoles. So nice job, ours is yours. If we go to the outsole, it's a vulcanized rubber outsole. They claim it's a vulcanized shoe that skates like a cup sole, which is a pretty bold claim. And a brief Vulc versus cup overview. I know I do it in every video, but just a refresher. Cup soles are usually just one piece outsole. They're just glued, they're stitched onto the bottom of the shoe. Cup soles are super thick, they have less board feel, way more foot protection, and they take longer to break in. This is a bit wild generalizations here, but people that like jump down a lot of stairs or like going big and like doing big landings, they usually like cup soles. Vulcanized shoes are two pieces. They're one piece of rubber glued to the bottom and then a strip of rubber wrapped around the edge called foxing. Then they're thrown in a big oven. They kind of bake together to create the one piece outsole. Vulc shoes, they're super thin and feel broken in right out of the box. They have really good board feel, but they do beat up your feet since they're so thin. So if we put the durometer on it, you can see it's 55 to 60 Chore, which is, it's about average for a Vulc shoe. So the lower the number, the softer and less durable it will be, but more grippy. The higher the number, the harder, less grippy, but more durable it will be. So the foxing on these outsoles went through like pretty quickly. Durability is always the biggest downfall of vulcanized shoes. I've skated tons of shoes where the outsole wears out way before the upper. So I reached out, I was telling all the guys, ours is yours, all the problems I was having with this. They're like, oh yeah, it's just because it's a single wrap rubber outsole. Like some shoes you'll see they have like a little bumper right there, like in the Janoskis, they have a little extra bumper right there. This is just a single wrap, so it's gonna be less durable than something that has, you know, 2 layers to go through before it. But this is my biggest problem with vulcanized shoes. Like they always go through right here. To rate these, like, I don't know, those last resort mock toes I skated went through in like 5 hours. The Cariumas I skated went through in like a couple sessions. These lasted about 2 weeks before I had to like fully shoe glue them back together. It's a little quicker than I would have liked, but all of the vulcanized shoes I've been skating have been going through in like, I'd say average about 3 weeks. I think they could have fixed it by putting, you know, that second layer of foxing around it, but it would have made it more expensive and it would be hard to compete at the price point they're at. But it did go through a little quick for me. And then for the feeling for a Vulc shoe that skates like a cup sole claim, I would say if you've just skated a Vulc, like I was just skating the Janoskis and these did feel a little more cup sole-ish, and then I was skating some cup soles and I switched back to these and I was like, oh no, this is still a Vulc. So I'd say if you've been skating a Vulc, they feel a little more cup sole, but if you've been skating a cup sole, these definitely still feel like a Vulc. And then, you know, just as the fit as a whole is something I noticed, like they fit pretty true to size. Like I'm wearing a 9.5 and they fit like a glove. They do make your feet look a little small. So that's everything we can see from the outside. A lot of these small companies can get away with hiding stuff on the inside. So let's cut them in half, see what's inside and see how they stack up against, you know, other bigger company shoes. All right, so we got them cut in half. Make sure to subscribe. It's the best thing you can do to support us so we can continue to cut 2 to 3 pairs of shoes a week and show you what you're spending your hard-earned money on. It's where our value really comes in. It's like, especially for skate shoes, like it's hard to take a risk on something you've never skated before. So hopefully these are helping you in your purchasing decisions. So, all right, let's see what's inside. So what I'm learning from all of these cut in half skate shoes is vulcanized shoes pretty much all look the same on the inside. There's no midsole, it's just the rubber outsole and the insole. But one surprise that I didn't see from the outside, which is crazy, was under the toe, you can see right here, there's a whole extra layer of rubber in it. There's nothing about this in the marketing. The New Balance 306s do it, you can see the strip around the side. Vans does the same thing. I was not expecting to see this because I went through the side so fast. I literally just barely missed it, like where this full hole actually went through, like it ends right here, like along the toe, and I went through right there. So it's funny, I would have liked to see that go maybe a little farther in to give you a little extra durability in the upper, but you know, shout out to them for actually putting a double layer in there. Like half the time, even in the boot world, we see everyone fakes double layers, and this actually has a double layer. The material analysis, kind of like, are they worth it? These small brands have to play a shell game of savings, especially with a lower price point shoe like this one. They kind of have to pick and choose what they focus on. Like they could start putting premium materials on everything, but then, you know, the price starts going up. You start getting into like $120, $130, $140 territory, which is like 2 of these shoes. Do you want to buy 2 of these shoes or one really nice shoe? It's kind of the game you gotta play. So I think for what they lack for in durability, they make up for in comfort. But you know, the cons of all that is the leather was really not great. Like I would really love to see an actual nicer grain leather on this shoe. The foxing went through really fast. I do think an added layer there would be super sick, but it is, you know, it's kind of the shared affliction with every Volk shoe. The pros, they're super comfortable. This is probably one of the most comfortable skate shoes I've ever worn. I really like the shape. I really like the hole cut upper, the way it takes away all the stitching. It really does conform to your foot like a sock. Like you can see all of like, you know, where my toes are. It's like, this is wrinkling like a nice boot. Super comfortable. They really didn't break in too much and get too soggy. Like they broke in just the right amount to me. I do like the extra layer in the toe. It's a nice plus. If it had better leather, I'd still be wearing it right now because it's so comfortable and I really liked it. I would say if you're on a budget and you can only afford, you know, like $60 to $70 shoes, I would say try these out. Just get the suede versions, skip the leather versions. Every $70 Volk shoe they're kind of all the same and they're gonna have similar problems like this outsole falling apart. That comes down to you, the consumer. Like, do you have the time and money to gamble on these small companies? It's kind of like McDonald's versus a fancy local restaurant. McDonald's is cheap and you know what you're gonna get. It's kind of mid, but you know what it is. The fancy restaurant is much more expensive than McDonald's, but most of the time it's better and better for you. But sometimes you will not like it and you're gonna need to stop by McDonald's after anyways to be satisfied. So Rose Anvil is kind of like the Yelp review that you look at before you go to either restaurant. You're like, all right, is this gonna be good enough for me? Or no, that I'm just going to McDonald's. So this is a shoe, I probably never would have skated this if I wasn't doing these reviews. So this is a big benefit of what we do to help these small guys get some extra shine and kind of you understand that there's all of these other companies besides the big guys out there that you can, you know, support and help keep the money in skateboarding itself. So let me know if you've ever skated these or like any versions of them. Really, everyone I asked is like, oh yeah, it's like Brian Herman's brand, but I've never seen them because they're not available in any shops around us. So check them out from Tactics. Go give them a try. Let me know what your opinion is. Let me know what else we should cut, like any other the small companies that are kind of popping up here and there that you really want to see. See you later next time.